views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Everyone, welcome to Angel Healing House Radio. My name is Candy Hough. Through my business, Angel Healing House, which can be found at angelhealinghouse.com. I'm a writer and an author, an international radio host, a Reiki master teacher, and an angel practitioner. My inspirational books entitled Angels of Faith and One True Home Behind the Veil of Forgetfulness, and my autobiography, I Am an Angelic Walk-In, are based on my recollections of our life in spirit, and they help us to remember our divine, eternal natures. Through Angel Healing House, I help people to let go of sadness, anger, bitterness, resentment, and regret that has kept them locked in the prison of the past, and I help them to let go of worry, stress, and control, which has kept them focused on an imagined future. And once they are no longer living in the past or the future, they can start to live in the present moment, which is the only place that they can experience synchronicities, miracles, and magic. As an angel practitioner, I help people to see their lives from a higher perspective with the help of an extraordinary group of angels who call themselves the Posse of Angels. Just like my angelic family, the Posse of Angels, I'm very excited to take some of your calls for that free angel advice. You can call into the show on 1-800-930-2819. But before we get to those callers, I'd like to wish all of you listeners a happy spring equinox, wherever you are, in whatever corner of the world. Now, the spring equinox is a time of rebirth. We see it in Mother Nature as she refreshes herself with buds on the trees and beautiful flowers. And there seems to be a freshness in the air. I'd like to take this freshness as of new opportunities and new connections to be born into our lives in order for us to refresh our lives. Now, we are going to be continuing today with March's theme. Now, if you are a regular listener, you know, in January, we spoke about fresh starts and new beginnings being the first month of 2017. And then we went into our month of love and forgiveness, which was February. And this month of March's theme is manifestation and miracles. So, what I'd like to, with this being the month of manifestation and miracles, the Posse of Angels wanted to speak about the topic, which is entitled The Miracle of Angels of Faith. Now, Angels of Faith was and is the first book that the angels channeled to me. The Posse of Angels wants us to consider the question, what is a miracle? And why couldn't miracles be a daily occurrence? Now, the dictionary definition of a miracle is that it is a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws, and it's therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. When this supernatural intervention occurs in a human being's life, well, it is so life-altering that for those whose lives have been touched by this divine intervention, we are truly never the same again. Now, one of the greatest miracles that ever happened for me was in the area of writing my books. And it came about because of a message from a tiny little bird. And listeners, if I was not open and clear enough in my heart to hear God speaking to me through this little bird, I would not have received such an enormous gift and blessing in my life. After my angelic walk-in experience in 2003, and just by the way, if you would like to find out more about my angelic walk-in experience, my autobiography, which is entitled I Am an Angelic Walk-In, can be purchased on my website, which is www.angelhealinghouse. But after my walk-in experience and having reconnected to my divine, eternal nature, I was then able to see, to hear, and communicate with my angelic family who call themselves the Posse of Angels. With this angelic connection, I then became an open channel to bring forth information from God and the angels. It didn't matter what time of day it was, didn't matter the circumstances, as whenever I sat down to write, messages would channel through me with ease and grace. So on one morning, I was surprised as my eyes popped open at 5:30 a.m. Now, this was very unusual, as getting up early for me is usually around 7 a.m. There is no 5:30 in the morning for me. I tried to go back to sleep, but I felt this overwhelming urgency to get up and write. So I turned on my computer, fixed myself a cup of tea, and decided that I would continue bringing forth my third book that I was turning into a workshop, and I was working on that. As I put my hands on the keys, nothing came forth. I was perplexed, and I took a couple of deep breaths. I repositioned my hands, and still nothing happened. Now, this was very odd, as every other time I wrote with total uninterrupted ease. And all of a sudden, the sound of a shrieking bird split the morning silence. The energy behind the bird's shrieking was one of urgency and desperation. As I listened, I began to receive a series of tingles and shocks that went up and down my body. I immediately knew that this was no ordinary bird, and that I needed to stop what I was doing and to go and investigate. Well, the noise drove me to our bathroom window, and when I looked out, I saw that a tiny bird had built its nest in our disused clothesline, which was right outside of the window, and the bird was sitting on the nest. When that tiny bird saw me, it locked eyes with me, and it began to chirp up a storm as he threw his head from side to side. Well, he hardly drew breath, as he seemed possessed to tell me something very important. And after about 5 minutes, the bird completely stopped. He tilted his head to one side and just stared at me. I thought, what an odd experience. And I was glad for the renewed quiet so that I could go back and concentrate on my writing. When I sat down and I repositioned my fingers on the keyboard, I began to type out a very new, different story to the one I had previously been working on. After about 30 minutes of writing, my fingers came to a halt. And as I read this enchanting, beautiful story for the first time, tears ran down my cheeks. The little bird wanted me to write my book, Angels of Faith, to help others to reconnect to their own divine eternal natures, to remember just how special each one of us is, and to remind us all where we come from and the glorious journey back to our one true home that we all get to take. Listeners, since launching this enchanting book in 2010, it has been a magnet for people to connect with me and the work that I do. The channeled message and angelic tone in the book touches people's hearts, And no matter where they are in the world, many of the readers seem to be experiencing the same magic. Now, for instance, shortly after launching this lovely book, I heard from a client in Australia who had ordered it. She told me that she loved the story and that when she first read it, something strange had happened. She said that when she got 3/4 through the book, her eyes started to well up with tears, and she began to remember something that she had forgotten long ago. I replied to her. I said, "What a beautiful response to my book." And I asked her if I could use her statement in a testimonial. Well, listeners, it was 4 days later, and I heard from a client in Santa Barbara, California, and where I used to hold meditation nights. And this gentleman had ordered 4 books for both family and friends. He congratulated me on this beautiful book and said he had to tell me of his strange experience. He said that when he read the story, he got 3/4 of the way through the book when his eyes started to well up with tears, and he remembered something that he had forgotten long ago. I was incredulous as he spoke almost the exact same words that the client in Australia had uttered just days before. And it was 1 week later that I heard from a gentleman in Virginia who worked at an old age home, and he had bought several copies of the book for the residents to read. Thanking me for writing such a lovely story, he said that with so many residents being terminally ill and many of them crossing over, that the book gave them, not only them, but gave their loved ones hope in the knowledge that we are divine and we are eternal and we live on. He then added that he had a rather peculiar experience when he read the book. He told me that he got halfway through the book when he felt his eyes misting over with tears, and he remembered who he was and felt an overwhelming peace within, like he had never experienced before. So in 1 week, from Australia to California to Virginia, and since then, many others in different parts of the world with different people around the globe were